spotlight promises everything, offering fame, wealth, and a kind of permanent legacy. Yet behind the flashing bulbs and glossy magazine spreads, something much darker is unfolding again in real time. One after another, the very figures we idolize are disappearing, not from the headlines, but from existence itself. Today, we are uncovering 10 celebrity collapses that expose the real toll of stardom, a cost paid not only by them, but by anyone chasing approval in a culture fueled by attention. And number 1 proves that the hidden fee of fame is higher now than ever. 10. Chris Farley. For years, he was Saturday Night Live's wildest force, a physical comic who threw his entire being into every sketch. His presence was electric, his dedication unwavering. Films like Tommy Boy and Black Sheep cemented him as a comedic legend of the 90s. Yet beneath the roar of laughter was someone suffocating in self-doubt. Farley's weight became both his signature and his burden. He fixated on it, measured himself against his hero, John Belushi, another brilliant comic lost to excess. Friends saw him unravel, torn between wanting to intervene and knowing he would push them away. By 1997, rehab had welcomed him 17 times, 17 attempts to break free. Each stay brought him back hopeful. Each return to Hollywood dragged him back into the spiral. On December 18th, he was discovered in his Chicago condo, alone, 33 years old. The official report listed an overdose caused by morphine and white powder. The unofficial truth pointed to decades of emotional pain he fought to numb, and his tragedy was only the start of one of Hollywood's darkest recurring themes. 9. River Phoenix. By 23, he had already earned an Oscar nomination and the kind of praise most actors spend a lifetime chasing. Stand By Me, My Own Private Idaho, Running on Empty. He was not just gifted, he was singular. Hollywood did not see a rising star, they saw destiny. Off camera, Phoenix radiated intention and compassion. He was plant-based, environmentally active, someone who spoke about protecting the world with the same intensity he brought to every character. But the foundation was beginning to crumble. The strain of maintaining a flawless public persona became unbearable. Phoenix turned to H and white powder, not for rebellion, but for escape. The substances offered distance from the expectations, from the roles, from the perfect version of himself the world insisted on. On October 31st, 1993, he collapsed outside the Viper Room in Los Angeles. His brother Joaquin made a desperate call to emergency responders, his voice cracking as he pleaded for assistance. River convulsed on the pavement while onlookers stared. Camera crews arrived before paramedics. He was pronounced lifeless at 1:51 a.m. Acute intoxication from multiple substances, white powder, H cannabis, Valium, all present in his body. Up next, a transformation that rattled an entire generation. 8. Whitney Houston. For almost 20 years, she embodied the meaning of global stardom. Her vocal power felt supernatural. Her stage presence commanded entire arenas. Tracks like I Will Always Love You and Greatest Love of All were more than chart toppers. They became part of culture itself. She sold more than 200 million records, collected awards endlessly, secured her place among the highest selling artists ever. Yet behind those perfect performances was a woman buried under expectations no one could ever fully meet. The pressure began young. The industry demanded flawlessness, not just in her singing, but in her appearance, her personal life, her behavior. Every choice was judged. Every change in weight became a headline. Every romance became a spectacle. Houston leaned on white powder and prescription medications to silence the fatigue, the demands, the hollow spaces success failed to fill. Her relationship with Bobby Brown became a media circus. Outsiders blamed him entirely, but those who knew the pair understood what really happened. They fed each other's habits. What began as casual use morphed into reliance. What started as a getaway transformed into captivity. By the late 2000s, Houston's once unmatched voice had broken down. Shows were halted. Live appearances grew painful to watch. The woman who once glided through impossible notes now strained to reach even simple ones. On February 11, 2012, she was discovered underwater in a hotel bathtub. 48 years old, white powder present in her system, heart complications created by years of substance use, and the cycle moved forward, taking yet another icon. 7. Philip Seymour Hoffman. He did not fit the conventional mold of a Hollywood lead. He did not rely on looks or celebrity charm, but his ability was extraordinary. Capote brought him an Oscar. The master aged out, and The Big Lebowski showcased his depth. Directors competed for him. Critics labeled him one of the finest actors of his era, and for 23 years, he stayed clean. Hoffman had struggled with addiction in his early 20s. Rehab helped him rebuild. He devoted himself to sobriety with the same focus he gave his performances. He talked about his past openly, not proudly, but as a warning of how easily recovery could slip. Then, in 2012, everything cracked. It began with prescription meds, then drinks, then H. The battles he thought he had defeated rose up again, fiercer than before. Friends saw the shift, the isolation, the fatigue, the distant, troubled expression that was impossible to ignore. He entered rehab in 2013. 10 days. Far too little. On February 2nd, 2014, he was found inside his Manhattan home, a needle still in his arm, 70 bags of H surrounding him. He was 46, 3 young children left behind without their father. Up next, a devastating collapse from the highest point in modern music. 6. Michael Jackson. No entertainer before or after him reached the same level of global dominance. Thriller remains the top-selling album of all time. His influence reshaped not only music, but movement, fashion, and modern culture. He was more than a celebrity. He was a myth, a worldwide figure who crossed borders, languages, and eras. Yet beneath the moonwalk and the glittering glove was a man living in relentless, unbearable suffering. Jackson never had a real childhood. His father abused him. The industry mined his talent. He was pushed into adulthood long before he understood what being a child meant. Fame was never freedom. It was confinement. And as he aged, the weight only grew heavier. The operations began in the 80s. His face changed dramatically. The press tore him apart. Allegations, some grounded and some fabricated, crushed his public reputation. He withdrew deeper into solitude, surrounded by people who protected their access instead of his health. Then the medications entered his life. Painkillers for injuries, sedatives for endless sleepless nights, propofol, an anesthetic intended only for surgical procedures, used to force his body into unconsciousness when sleep would not come. On June 25th, 2009, his personal doctor gave him a fatal amount of propofol inside his bedroom. The king of pop went into cardiac arrest. He died at 50. Michael Jackson was not only taken by substances, his humanity was stripped away. He became a carnival attraction, a punchline, a warning. The boy who wanted to heal the world could not heal himself. The cheering had faded years before. Silence was all that remained, but the darkest story was still waiting. 5. Judy Garland. At 16, she became America's darling through The Wizard of Oz. Her voice carried a rare kind of magic, full of longing, hope, and fragile beauty. MGM Studios turned her into a household name, placing her image on every theater screen, every magazine page, every billboard. Yet behind the stardom stood a system built to break her. The studio dictated it all: her weight, her hours, her public persona. When she gained too much, they withheld food. When she was too exhausted to work, they forced amphetamines into her hand. When she could not rest, they gave her barbiturates to knock her out. By 18, Judy Garland was already enslaved to pills. The cycle consumed her life. Stimulants to perform, depressants to recover, drinks to blur the truth that she was treated like a commodity rather than a human being. She married 5 times, always reaching for stability that slipped away. Her film career disintegrated. Her live shows fell apart. The same industry that built her tossed her aside when she became inconvenient. Friends described her as shattered, trapped within a body altered chemically from childhood, dependent on substances she never freely chose. On June 22nd, 1969, she was discovered in her London residence, 47 years old, a fatal accidental overdose of barbiturates. Her weight had dropped below 90 pounds, and if her story feels devastating, the next descent unfolded, even more publicly, violently, and painfully. 4. Amy Winehouse. She burst into the mid-2000s with force, raw and unapologetically genuine. Her blend of jazz and soul stood apart from anything on the radio. Back to Black became one of the most acclaimed albums of the decade. She earned 5 Grammys in a single night. The world fell for her honesty, her fragility, her refusal to fit the mold. Yet that same honesty became the source of her undoing. Winehouse's battles were never hidden. They played out on screens everywhere. Her hit song Rehab openly rejected treatment. The public witnessed her decline in real time through paparazzi snapshots, canceled appearances, chaotic moments captured and replayed endlessly. The addiction started it. Then came white powder, then H. Her relationship with Blake Fielder Civil heightened everything. They used together, they pulled each other deeper. Friends described them as destructive, intertwined, and impossible to separate without harm. By 2008, Winehouse's body was collapsing. She was dangerously thin. Her shows spiraled into disasters. Admirers who once cherished her began to ridicule her. Viral videos of her stumbling through performances turned her suffering into spectacle. She tried to get sober many times, but the pattern would not release her. The bulimia, the self-inflicted harm, the substances, all signals of wounds she could never outrun. On July 23, 2011, she was discovered inside her London home, 27 years old. Found unresponsive after a night of heavy drinking. Toxicity levels measured more than 5 times the legal limit. Up next, a superstar whose fall was every bit as dramatic as his rise. 3. Elvis Presley. He did not just influence music, he reinvented it. In the 1950s, Elvis erupted onto the scene like a cultural tremor. His voice, his movement, his charisma reshaped the entire idea of what a performer could be. He sold more than 1 billion records, appeared in 33 films, became the most recognizable entertainer on earth. But the crown carried a hidden cost. Elvis was a contradiction. He publicly condemned illegal substances with fierce passion. He even met with President Nixon to discuss the dangers of narcotics. Yet behind closed doors, he was swallowing prescription medications in staggering quantities. Painkillers, sedatives, uppers, as many as 10,000 pills in the last months of his life. It began legitimately, an injury, a prescription, but soon doctors gave him anything he asked for. The pills kept him going through exhaustion, helped him sleep after adrenaline-soaked shows, helped him escape the crushing reality of living as Elvis Presley. His weight surged. The man once seen as the world's ultimate sex symbol gained nearly 200 pounds within 10 years. His behavior shifted. He became suspicious, unpredictable. He retreated into Graceland, surrounded by people who relied on him financially and ignored the disaster unfolding. On August 16, 1977, he collapsed in his bathroom. 42 years old. 14 different substances were found in his system. The official cause was cardiac arrest, but everyone understood what had led him there, and the tragedy was about to enter its most devastating stage. 2. Janis Joplin. In the late 60s, she blasted into the spotlight with a raw, unfiltered power that stunned the music world. Her voice was not delicate or refined. It was fierce, honest. Songs like Piece of My Heart and Me and Bobby McGee became cultural anthems. She embodied freedom, individuality, and the refusal to fit into anyone else's expectations. But that freedom masked a deep loneliness. Joplin had been an outsider long before fame found her. Bullied as a teenager for her looks, ridiculed for being different. Music became her refuge, but success did not erase the scars. She drank heavily. Southern comfort rarely left her hand. H followed soon after. Friends said she longed desperately for affection, for acceptance, for someone who saw beyond the image. She could electrify an audience with her presence, then return to her room alone, drowning her solitude in substances. The more she tried to fill the hollow spaces inside her, the wider they became. By 1970, she was trying to clean up her life. She cut back on her substance use, began recording Pearl, the album that would become her greatest achievement. There was real hope, fragile but shining. On October 4th, 1970, she used H far stronger than she expected. She collapsed in her hotel room, 27 years old, alone. Her body was not discovered until the following day. And now, the most painful story of all. 1. John Belushi. He was not simply humorous, he was a storm. On Saturday Night Live, he created characters that became pop culture staples. The Blues Brothers launched him into film stardom. His energy was explosive, uncontrollable. Directors, co-stars, audiences, everyone felt the charge when Belushi stepped into a room. But that same ferocity consumed him from the inside. Belushi's substance use was not casual. It was compulsive and wildly destructive. White powder was constant. H soon followed. He would vanish for days in chaotic binges, return drained and anxious, then throw himself back into projects with the same frantic drive. His wife, Judy, tried with everything she had to pull him back. Friends organized interventions. Studios threatened to let him go. Nothing changed. Belushi believed he could manage it, that his willpower matched his talent. He was mistaken. By 1982, he stood at the height of his fame, yet the lowest point of his personal life. Filming became unmanageable, relationships crumbled, his body struggled under the non-stop assault of substances. On March 5th, 1982, in Bungalow 3 at the Chateau Marmont, a woman injected him with a speedball, a deadly blend of multiple substances. He died hours later, 33 years old. The autopsy confirmed acute intoxication. These were not just stars, they were people crushed beneath expectations no one could survive. Fame promised them the world. It offered them isolation. The substances that once seemed like release became chains. And the same world that lifted them up abandoned them as soon as they stopped fitting the fantasy. Some fought for years. Others fell quickly, but all of them deserved more than what they received. More compassion, more support, more humanity. So the question remains, if we understand the price of fame, why do we still demand flawlessness from those who are barely holding themselves together? Thank you for watching. Like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you in the next story.